A girl, as usual, boarded a train to go home, but when she returned to reality, it was 7 years later. According to her account, the train eventually stopped at a place called Kisaragi Station, where she experienced various strange events. However, upon investigation, it was found that there was no such station in Japan. This incident quickly spread and evolved on the internet, gradually becoming the most famous urban legend in the area. Shanna, a senior student at the Japanese Art Academy, is currently searching for material for her graduation thesis. Upon hearing about a woman who disappeared for 7 years and returned to reality, she decides to unveil the mystery of Kisaragi Station to make her thesis stand out. Shanna contacts Junko, the person involved, and decides to reconstruct the truth of the incident. Welcomed by Junko's niece, in the gaps of waiting in the living room, Shanna notices that the room opposite is filled with reports of missing persons. Just then, Junko enters, interrupting Shanna's curiosity. Awkwardly, Junko pulls the curtains closed. After a brief introduction, Junko begins to narrate her experience in the virtual world back then. At that time, Junko was a high school teacher. She worked overtime until 11 p.m., almost missing the last train home. Due to upcoming final exams in a few days, Junko was busy preparing lessons for her students. At first, everything inside the train was normal, but as she lowered and raised her head, all the passengers in the carriage disappeared. With a whistle, the train unexpectedly entered a tunnel. The route Junko took every day to go home had no tunnels at all. A burst of white light later, when Junko realized, the train had arrived at an unfamiliar place. Despite her phone showing 11 p.m., it was daytime here. The carriage also inexplicably gained 5 additional passengers, a suit-clad man, 3 young men and women, and a schoolgirl. Junko wanted to find the crew to inquire about the situation but found the crew room's curtains drawn, and no one responded to her knocks. As everyone woke up one after another, looking at the unfamiliar scenery outside, they all thought they had missed their stop. When the train reached the station, a sign with 8 big characters greeted them, Kisaragi Station. Everyone followed Junko off the train. The station was deserted, with no one in sight, and their phones had no signal. No one knew where they were. Hanachan asked Junko, but Junko had no clue. Drunk guy followed the young couple to the waiting hall. At this moment, the schoolgirl looked terrified towards the platform. When Junko turned around, everything at the station was normal. The schoolgirl wore the uniform of Junko's school, but they didn't know each other due to the age difference. Uncle Kyumon just lay flat, and when the train arrived, they had to shout at him to wake up, even knocking over half a bottle of good wine. The 3 young people decided to go out to find a taxi, and Junko and Chinatsu followed to a nearby residential area. Strangely, the houses here were empty, uninhabited. At the corner, cries were heard, and following the sound, Junko was knocked down by Hanachan, who looked terrified. They returned to the station with her. From their conversation, it was learned that another man who went out with them was named Hiroshi. Seemingly something terrible had happened just now. Hanachan pulled up her girlfriend and was about to leave. They decided to walk to the previous station. At this moment, a man's scream came from behind. The schoolgirl was frightened, but Kyumon showed no fear, even attempting to drink the remaining drops of alcohol in the bottle, demonstrating his prowess as if licking a plate was the only thing missing. Junko decides to accompany the schoolgirl, leaving Kyumon alone to wait for the train. They continue walking for several hours, and everyone is exhausted. Hanachan and the leopard-print girl remain silent about Daisho's unexpected disappearance. Suddenly, the leopard-print girl's phone rings, and surprisingly, it's a video call from Daisho. However, they all avoid answering, afraid to confront him. Junko snatches the phone, presses the answer button, but the caller remains silent. Uncle Kyumon catches up, mentioning hearing the sound of a festival. There must be other people nearby. Hanachan and the leopard-print girl, upon hearing the drumbeat, become terrified because the same figure appeared when Daisho wanted to die, and the drumbeat is a death omen in this parallel world. Their speculation quickly proves true as Jamin's eyes turn black, veins bulging, covered by numerous tentacle-like things crawling all over his body, and his head inflates like a balloon. Everyone is frightened and runs forward, but due to fatigue, they have to temporarily stop and take a break. At this moment, an old man's voice is heard, but before anyone can figure out what's happening, the old man instantly appears behind him. At this point, distant drum beats start, and the old man with a cane suddenly goes into a rampage mode, seemingly trying to take off using the railway tracks. Daisho suddenly reappears in front of the group, grabbing Hanachan, demanding an explanation of why they didn't save him and just ran away. In the brief pause, the elderly supervisor grabs the leopard-print girl. Simultaneously, Daisho disappears again, and the world returns to the previous bottleneck. Hanachan then pulls out a knife, revealing the secret to surviving is to offer a sacrifice when the drumbeat starts. A soul can be safe for a while. He sets his sights on the two women. Junko tells the schoolgirl to go ahead, and she stands in front of Hanachan. After a struggle, Junko's arm is injured, and Hanachan's thigh is stabbed with a pen. The two women stumble into a tunnel. The tunnel is pitch black, and Chenzi accidentally falls, scraping her knee. Being a role model, she urges the schoolgirl to go on. The schoolgirl bandages Junko's wound with a handkerchief and leaves with 3 glances back. At this moment, Hanachan catches up and starts attacking Junko. The students return and block a knife, injuring an arm. Just as Hanachan is about to strike again, the lights in the tunnel suddenly explode, one after another. The already dim tunnel becomes even darker. Uses her phone for illumination, only to find the schoolgirl missing, and Hanachan's whereabouts unknown. While the two are puzzled, a rustling sound comes from above. Looking up, they see Hanachan being consumed by numerous tentacles. Terrified, they run out of the tunnel. When asked why they returned, the student remains silent. Basically, if you still remember a phrase after staying up all night, is deeply moved by it and still keeps the handkerchief to this day, swearing silently to bring the schoolgirl back to reality. Not long after leaving the tunnel, they encounter a stranger. Seeing their injuries, he offers to take them to a nearby hospital. Believing they have returned to the real world, they get on the car without much thought. The recent experience leaves them highly tense, and relaxing makes them feel extremely tired. Unconsciously, they fall asleep. After an unknown period, the man's muttering wakes them up. The driver's eyes roll back, and he stops the car, preparing to attack. The two jump out of the car and run into the woods, with the driver chasing them relentlessly. They aimlessly run through the forest until they accidentally reach a temple. The drumbeat heard earlier is coming from here. The schoolgirl discovers a glowing door, speculating that passing through it will take them back to the real world. Just as they are about to rush to the door, the driver suddenly appears, blocking their way. Junko picks up a stick from the ground and engages in a struggle. At this moment, the several previously dead people suddenly appear, constantly pleading for help. The situation becomes tense. Junko uses the stick to strangle the driver's neck, letting the schoolgirl go first. The schoolgirl rushes into the escape door, and Junko's body starts to be infected by the tentacles. Just as she is about to lose consciousness, she hears the schoolgirl's cry for help. The escape door then explodes, a bright light flashes, and Junko finds herself back in the real world. However, it is now 7 years later. This is the entirety of Miss Junko's experiences. After returning, Junko speculates that the escape door is also a form of sacrifice. Only with the sacrifice of a soul can the surviving person return to the real world. Junko proposed letting the student go first that day, and now, thinking back, she realizes that she harmed her and went against her own oath, failing to bring her back to reality. Over these years after returning, Junko has lived in deep self-blame. Later, she tried to take the same train again but could never return to the parallel world. At this moment, Shanna suggests that Junko recall everything that happened that day. They meticulously piece together Junko's itinerary on that day. Because she fell asleep on the train, she took the same train twice, and the accident happened when she took the last train home. Shanna boldly speculates that this might be the trigger to the switch leading to the parallel world. Upon hearing Shanna's analysis, Junko unexpectedly reveals a strange smile. The girl eavesdropping outside also shows a satisfied smile. Shanna is an absolute action taker. That night, she replicated Junko's entire itinerary, and as expected, everything unfolds in the same order. The train enters a tunnel. Kyumon, the three young people, the schoolgirl, Kisaragi Station. Everything Shanna described is identical, even their questions are surprisingly similar. However, the students don't remember Junko at all. It seems their memories are erased each time they go back and forth. Shanna sees the monster that terrifies the students, catches the falling bottle, and everything happens in sequence. Shanna tries to stop the young people from going out but is pushed to the ground by Hanachan. However, Shanna, unwilling to give up, she tackles Hanachan and accurately locates the small knife at his waist, forcing everyone back to the station. But then, the drumbeat begins, and tentacles appear under Hanachan's feet. He starts to mutate slowly. Shanna brings the remaining two back to the station, where all the scenes play out, just with a different character. Shanna leads everyone forward, and based on the various strange behaviors earlier, everyone suspects that Shanna has been here before. However, only she knows that she has seen the walkthrough. At this moment, the dead Hanachan calls. Baowen girl answers, but there is no sound. She then glances at the phone and throws it away. What's the matter? Impossible. Terrified, the leopard-print girl speaks in a Chinese dialect. Shanna calmly hangs up the phone. As everyone continues forward, she looks back. Wait, this time Kyumon's wine bottle didn't break. Kyumon has drunk too much and is vomiting on the roadside. Then, the drumbeat starts again. Because Kyumon has drunk too much and is moving slowly, he saves himself from certain death. Just a short distance away on the tracks, the tentacle monster flashes by but doesn't catch anyone. All the settings remain unchanged, they just slow down the pace. When everyone sits down to rest, Shanna looks around. She is looking for the old man who is about to appear. Shanna urges everyone to run quickly. The old man is still preparing to take off behind. Then, Hanachan appears. This time, he catches not an elephant but the leopard-print girl. Just as the old man is about to catch up, Shanna directly kicks Hanachan, creating a surreal scene. Everyone is stunned, and no one doubts Shanna's strength anymore. This woman is undoubtedly a powerful player. They then reach the tunnel, and since a fixed NPC character is missing in the game, nothing unexpected happens in the tunnel. Instead, Shanna feels a reduced presence. Just as everyone rejoices at being saved, the driver returns. Everyone is discussing who should stay behind. This move scares everyone present, but no one expresses dissent. After all, someone like the driver is now a godlike existence, and everyone hopes he can lead them back. The car keeps moving forward, but the driver suddenly appears in the middle of the road. After being hit and knocked down, the driver rises again, walking with an indifferent pace. The car also malfunctions at this point, and the few people can only escape from the vehicle. Kyumon can't unfasten his seatbelt, so he stays behind as a decoy. The few people rush through the woods, but they don't find the previously encountered temple. Instead, they come across a house. They decide to go inside to seek help, but the room is empty. The first secret of keeping suspense in horror movies is never to leave the group. Someone wants to check the second floor alone, but ends up encountering Hanachan. The leopard-print girl comes forward to help, but fate still has its way, leaving only two survivors. At this moment, the deceased reappear one by one. Discovers the escape door in the backyard, thinking of escaping, but she remembers the escape door also requires a soul as a sacrifice. So, she pretends to control the driver, allowing the schoolgirl to go first. Although the plot is similar to before, the ending is vastly different this time. Senses something wrong, she runs towards the escape door. However, in a blink of an eye, the escape door disappears. It's at this moment that she realizes the strategy she saw was Purito's deception. The purpose was to keep her in the parallel world to save the schoolgirl. The students finally return to the real world, who has been waiting for them. Here, we boldly make a conjecture. Purito didn't let the schoolgirl go first but entered the escape door himself. So, after returning to the real world, he lived in deep remorse, determined to save the schoolgirl. However, lacking the courage to go back again, he spread the news of his return and fabricated the story of the escape door sacrifice. All of this was to hope that someone would follow his account, bring the students back to reality. This deception seems flawless, but she overlooked an important point. During her narration, her niece was eavesdropping outside the door. The niece also entered the train carriage of the parallel world. The position that should have been the schoolgirl's became Shanna's. According to Junko's fabricated incorrect walkthrough, Shanna would still return to the real world, but only 7 years later, and she wouldn't remember who Junko was.